Welcome to
Tom and Jesse Podcast. Everything relevant in the news.
local, national, and international.
Welcome everyone. This is Jesse Portillo.
Good morning, Jesse. I'm Tom Clark.
In today's podcast, we're going to talk about Trump. Also, Democrats' primary, who is leading. And let's talk about Melania Trump. It's warming up on politics and we'll be hosting a fundraiser here in Beverly Hills. And if you want to attend, how much it will cost?
It's only $2,800 minimum.
Wow! And also we're going to talk about the legend Kobe Bryant. So we welcome you to today's podcast and we hope you enjoy the information that we have prepared for you. Okay, good morning. Good morning. How are you, my dear Tom?
I'm doing great this beautiful winter morning.
Yes.
It's like spring here in Bakersfield.
You know what? The whole week has been so beautiful. You know, the weather has been, it's like a gift.
Oh, yes. It's too bad Bakersfield isn't like this in the summer.
Yes, I guess, we get hot. So let's talk about Trump. What is happening in the campaign 2020?
Well, right here in the southern Central Valley of California, a lot of people are excited because 2 days hence, Donald J. Trump, the president, will be in Bakersfield, coming here to talk to farmers in particular about some of their concerns and water and related issues. And he's a busy fellow traveling. Just last week, last Tuesday, he was in New Hampshire, Monday or Tuesday, and everyone was focusing on the Democrats, but Trump's presence reminded him that he's running essentially unopposed. The former governor of Massachusetts, William Weld, is providing some token opposition. He got about 10%. But Trump was there, and then Bernie Sanders on the Democratic side beat several other candidates.
So do you think that with all these matters, with the impeachment and all this stuff from, the overpower of the Department of Justice with his friend,
Bill Barr,
and exonerating this guy that has been convicted for 9 years. Do you think that this is something that people is preoccupied that he is abusing the power as a president?
Well, I think a lot of people are preoccupied, but the people who are most preoccupied are Democrats, and I think that Trump, who has a 94% approval rating among Republicans, most of the Republicans probably are not particularly worried about it. Some of them will take note of it, but I think they will accept almost anything that Donald Trump could possibly do. They've accepted everything that he's done that we know about, and we certainly know about many things that he's done. So I think Trump's like the Teflon man. Remember, I think we mentioned it last week. Here's a guy who during the campaign of 2016 said, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and no one would do anything. That is his attitude, at least figuratively, if not literally.
There is one guy that went to I saw it in an interview in one of those shows, the morning shows, and this guy, it's a big time in the Republican Party, and he had been a strategist and how to win, and he was saying something really, really interesting. He was mentioning about how the Republican Party is about winning, and the Democrat Party is about doing the right thing, and in that is how they have the winning spin in regards of, because the first thing that they want is to put their people to have the power, That's what I understood from this interview from this guy.
Well, he's probably a Democrat, of course. And I think if you asked a Republican, they would tell you, well, to listen to ranters like Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity, they're going to say the Democrats and the liberals have an emotional disorder and they don't care about the country. All they care about is winning, and they take horrible cheap shots at us. That is their perspective. As a Democrat, I feel, of course, and I believe you do as well, quite the opposite. And it does seem like they are a rather treacherous group, particularly in the Senate behind Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, but this guy was a Republican, and he was.
Oh, it was a Republican.
He is a Republican, talking about, because the host asked him, hey, what do you suggest to the Democrat Party to be ready for Donald Trump? And he says, you know what? One of the things that the Democrats has to pay attention is strategies, how to put their people in the key places that they need to win. And he was talking about how is even the rhetorics that the president does. It doesn't matter, because whatever, as you mentioned, they don't care about what he does. What they care is just to pull the popularity level, the acceptance, and put this guy again on 4 more years. That's their goal, and how they are doing it is in different perspectives, but starting from one simple vote, getting that person, that vote, to vote for them.
Well, it's always nice to have new supporters. However, I don't think that the Democrats can count on a mass exodus on the part of the Republicans. I think that the base is really quite solid. It's unprecedentedly solid. As I mentioned, 94% approval. No one has ever had that high approval rating, even among members of his own party as president. So it's interesting that that this gentleman has stated that as a Republican, but there are Democrats who've said comparable things about the Democratic Party after essentially leaving the party.
What? I always remember when Donald Trump was doing his political campaign in 2016. He was talking about draining the swamp, and what? Reflecting on that, it's something that it's happening, because if you pay attention to what is happening right now, how the justice system it's working, the democratic system of United States is falling apart, because we are seeing more and more people doing the wrong stuff than the right stuff, and the people of the United States, we as a voters, we didn't know that it was happening, so openly, like he is putting on the spot everyone, especially the appointees that he has. Most of them, they are in jail now. Right.
Well, I think that is the good point, is that it underscores that the system is working in a lot of ways, because many of these bad actors around Donald J. Trump are, in fact, in the slammer as we speak. His attorney, Michael Cohen, is in jail. His former campaign manager, Paul Manafort, is in jail. Stone, who was just convicted. I think his name is Robert. I forget.
Robert Stone.
Robert Stone. His longtime friend and advisor is in very serious trouble, and that's what this latest deal with Attorney General William Barr has been all about.
Yeah, and one of the things that touched my interest is what do you think about those 4 judges resigning because the pressure from Bill Barr, coming from the president of the United States, abusing his own judiciary department?
Well, I think it was a great move. I have written about 15 years ago, after many years of study, I wrote a book called Hitler Here, a biographical novel. And I am not, let me repeat, I am not comparing Donald Trump or America to Hitler and Nazi Germany. But one phrase I remember from early in Hitler's regime, when it was not too early it was not too late to stop him, was that one of his critics said, we must have an independent judiciary in order to maintain what they hoped would be a democracy. And of course, it was not anything at all like that. Now, in the United States, we're way beyond that. In the world, the democratic world is way beyond that. But your point is good. Donald Trump is not in favor of an independent judiciary. The judiciary is an arm of Donald Trump and the White House, and Bill Barr, as many have noted, is acting more like his personal attorney than the Attorney General of the United States. In other words, the people's prosecutor. He is not that.
You know, it bugs me that Donald Trump has said publicly, you know, that he is the state. So everybody has got to be loyal to him, not United States. You know, he's, in my opinion, he's wrong on that statement.
Oh, he's absolutely wrong, and very troubling. And this is an issue I'm going to write about later this week. Trump and his supporters now, following his leader, saying, I may serve 3 or 4 terms. And then he can always say, well, we all know there's a constitutional limit of 2. And he'll say, well, I was just kidding. But he's not kidding. And what he's really not kidding about, and he wasn't even kidding when he was running for president, he says, there's going to be trouble, meaning violence in the street, if I lose this election, because it'll be a fake election. And now he is saying that, and his supporters are saying that. One of his supporters said, I have a 357 Magnum if Donald Trump is not reelected. So he's basically saying, I'm going to win easily, but if I don't, it's going to be fake and there's going to be trouble. And I would like to say to President Trump, the Constitution is the highest law in the land, and the Constitution is clear. There's, number one, there is a 2-term limit, and you're out after that, buddy. And number 2, if you lose the election, that is, if you lose the Electoral College in November of 2020, you're either going to vacate the White House or the military forces and the police of the United States will remove you and suppress your loudmouth and potentially dangerous colleagues. And if I sound heated up, I am. The Constitution is the number 1 law in this nation, not Donald Trump and not any other person.
So, you know, the best weapon that we have as citizens is to get out and vote.
That's right.
Make your voice count, you know, because we've seen, especially, you know, in the Latino community, I've seen the low percentage of people voting. And that is scary because, you know, we can have a voice, but it's not possible because the people either lazy or they don't see the importance of going and vote.
Yes, I've always been perplexed by that. It's been, as you've said, it's been a problem, the low voter turnout among Latinos in the United States. And it's in every way in their interest to go out and support candidates who believe in the things that they believe in. And there are many good Latino candidates all over the country. Particularly in the West and the Southwest, but all over. We've seen the emergence of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez out of the Bronx in New York State. And she's one of the most dynamic and influential young politicians in the country.
Correct. You know, and she's setting an example that everyone gotta raise the voice through the vote and telling the people or choosing the right person who represent them. You know, for example, we have now in another topic that we're talking about. It's about the Democrats' primary, who's leading, who is in this race to the White House. You know,
Well, you know, they had a barroom brawl basically in New Hampshire, and Bernie Sanders had a relatively narrow victory, about 1 or 2 percentage points over Pete Buttigieg, the young mayor of South Bend, Indiana. And and Amy Klobuchar, I believe, finished third. And so people said, "Oh my God, Klobuchar is an important national candidate now for president." She's an important person. I'm not knocking her. She's a U.S. senator. That's a significant achievement. But she finished fifth in Iowa and third in New Hampshire. And that's, again, these are small, lily white states. And so she and Buttigieg, I think this Saturday in Nevada and the Saturday after that in South Carolina are going to learn that their lack of a diverse base is going to hurt them. I fully expect within a month, by Super Tuesday in early March, when California and Texas and other states are involved, large diverse states, I expect them to be out of the race. And by then we'll know probably who the candidate
for the Democratic Party,
who the nominee will be, or at least the top two candidates. And Joe Biden, who's struggled in the first two primaries, is probably going to do a lot better in Nevada, in South Carolina, and in California.
My surprise is that Elizabeth Warren is not on those percentage, or the top.
Right. I think a couple of things have hurt Warren. First of all, again, when I think about it or when I discuss it, it gets down to this. You must be a star in order to be a president of the United States. In the television era, you must be a star. Usually the person who is the most popular, the most attractive and most popular, usually that is the person who wins. And you go back to John F. Kennedy. Richard Nixon, who was underestimated in that regard. Ronald Reagan, who was an actor, very attractive man. Bill Clinton. George W. Bush, who, for all his faults, he didn't know anything about public policy, and he was unstable and a warmonger, but he was
showing, taking picture with books, upside down.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, but more importantly, he was a good-looking guy with a charming personality, and he certainly didn't get in there because of his knowledge of public policy or his stability. And look at the disaster, both economically and in terms of foreign relations, the war in Iraq, and then, of course, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, very, movie star kind of guys.
Yeah, and the knowledge of, public speaking, they were amazing.
Oh, they were great speakers. And, I mean, those guys walked into a room and you really felt it. Same with Ronald Reagan. I mean, it was a thrilling thing when he walked in. And to a lesser degree, George W. Bush.
Yeah.
But so back to Elizabeth Warren. She is a very bright woman. She's an accomplished woman, a professor at Harvard and a U.S. senator, but I think her lack of star quality hurts her. Also, the fact that she and Bernie Sanders were essentially battling it out for the votes on the left, because it could well be that Bernie Sanders is too far left to be even nominated, much less win. I think the center is the place to be. Barack Obama was in the center. He moved there, and Bill Clinton was in the center. And I think a lot of people early on viewed them as liberals, and perhaps in their hearts they were liberals, but they were also pragmatic, and they were in the center. So Elizabeth Warren has been hurt in those two areas: lack of star quality, and the perception that it was either going to be Bernie or she. And
that's what I on my mind in the last podcast that we did last week. That. I was battling between Bernie and Warren, and I see that Elizabeth didn't even show on those the first three candidates for the Democratic Party.
Right. I think that she had to have a strong showing in these predominantly white states. There are no indications that she has right now looking at it. She's polling, according to Real Clear Politics, she's polling third in Nevada with 12%. Sanders leading at 21.5%, Biden 18.5%. It's probably a two-candidate race. And in South Carolina, Warren is way down at 9% in fourth place. Biden is still leading there. That was his stronghold. His support among black voters and overall in South Carolina has definitely been diminishing. He's at 26.5%, Sanders at 20%. So Bernie's getting stronger, and Biden overall is getting weaker. I think within about a week and a half, we're probably going to be able to rule out Elizabeth Warren. I think she'll be out of the race. She may stick around till Super Tuesday. She might as well. But I really don't think it's looking good for her.
Here in California, you said that you got some percentage. Sanders leading on 25, then Biden 21, Warren,
pretty strong
place,
here. Yeah,
very strong in California, 19.
Yeah, she's in third place. Notice how weak Buttigieg is right now in California, just 7%, a very distant fourth. Yeah. Yes. California is a liberal state, a Democratic stronghold. So her perceived leftism will not hurt her here to the degree that it has elsewhere. And there are enough liberals here where Bernie Sanders, for whom I've already voted, can also get a lot of votes.
Yes. So the best thing, when it's going to happen? Do you think that you said that it's going to be the Super
Tuesday in early March,
in early March, right? And the
Texas is going that day as well.
Yeah, the president it's coming to Bakersfield
this Wednesday. 2 days hence. Yes.
Interesting. Do you think that he is paying attention to Bakersfield because of his friend or
Kevin McCarthy, the Senate or House Majority Leader? Well, I think that's a reason. Yes.
Kevin, you know how the people call Kevin McCarthy here?
What?
The Candyman.
The Candyman?
Yeah.
And what is the...
Do you know why the meaning?
No, I
because remember that they were making fun of, this guy bringing the favorite candies for the president.
Oh, McCarthy did that? Oh, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
No, I don't.
Yeah, they call it the Candyman because, he did it twice, It brought the favorite candies, and then the president says, oh, I like this one. And then the second time, he bought another bottle of candies, but just that kind of candy that the president likes.
Well, he knows how to kiss up to the president. If he really wanted to help the president, who's rather overweight, I would say that he should have brought him some carrots.
Yes. Carrots to the big boy.
Right.
We welcome you if you barely getting into our podcast, Tom and Jesse podcast every Monday. And we are talking about some topics that really matters. And now, talking about Melania. Melania is doing something now for the candidacy of her husband.
Yes. I've noted, and I wasn't surprised when I read the following, that she's going to be more and more involved in fundraising. I've noticed the pictures of them together. I think a lot of it might have come after the acquittal. Perhaps their relationship has improved after that, and they seem kind of like they're glowing in each other's presence now, which is nice to see.
No more stormies. No more.
Well, I'm assuming not, because if he pulls that before the election, that's one thing that could beat him if he strays between now and the November election. But Melania seems to be. And of course, we're just assessing from long distance, but I would say she is warming up toward her husband. Relationships go up and down. They do.
Correct.
With my own wife, I have ups and downs.
Yes.
And so I'm glad on a personal level that they're doing well. And one manifestation of that politically is that I received a text message the day before yesterday probably not from Melania personally, but some of her aides, inviting me to a Beverly Hills fundraiser in late March. And the tickets are $2,800 and up.
Oh.
And I'd like to go, but that's a little heavy for me, particularly since I think they have that up sign that is kind of like an arrow pointing to the right. That's a mathematical sign meaning or more. I'm guessing that in Beverly Hills with a big star like Melania, you're going to have to pay $50,000 in order to sit near her at the dinner and get a handshake and perhaps a word with her in a photo op. And if I took my wife, that would be $100,000 right there for the photo op. So I've opted out of that one.
Too expensive.
a little too expensive for me.
Yeah, but as a Democrat, would you support this kind of activities?
No, I personally would not go. I was kidding about it, but I was just saying, if you are a Republican, you got a few bucks, I think you're going to have to jack up around $50,000 in order to really
almost $3,000
get a photo op
just to have a handshake. Well, if you're lucky.
Right. I mean, this $2,800. That's going to be the equivalent.
Ticket to get in.
that's going to be like the proverbial nosebleed seats at an athletic event. I mean, you're not going to get much access to Melania for that because she really is a star.
Yes. Yeah. So the best of the lucks for her. And now warming up on politics. Getting involved with her husband. So it's something to applaud after getting slammed with all this information about his husband's dealings and
yes, remember she got her revenge. One thing she did, she went in a different motorcade a year or two. I think it was 2 years ago now, 2018. She went to the State of the Union address of her husband in a different motorcade. A separate motorcade. That was her message saying, don't do this again. Do not humiliate me. And so I think it's quite possible that President Trump has improved his personal behavior. Not that it's necessarily any of our business, but it's reported, and we're responding only for that reason.
Yes. Well, let's talk about the coronavirus. That it's increasing how the people and the worry what is happening. I heard that 14 Americans that they were in the quarantine cruise ship in Italy. They are home, but all of them they test positive for coronavirus.
They're still in quarantine here, I believe, at either Travis Air Force Base, which is close to where I was raised in Sacramento. It's in the Fairfield area, which is between Sacramento and San Francisco. And there's another Air Force Base in Arizona where they will be quarantined.
Yeah, because what I heard about the coronavirus is that it's not only contagious to touch, or like the regular flu, then when you touch some germs and then you touch your nose or your eyes, then you get infected. Coronavirus works even with the air that we breathe. It can travel that way.
Right. It's like flu, and I think TB is like that as well. Other contagious diseases, it could be. It's in the air as well as through human contact. And President Xi of China, as well as President Trump, have said, well, when the weather warms up, that could help. And it could be, because many of the kinds of conditions that lead to colds, people being cold, first of all, physically cold, and touching their nose and all this, and breathing and coughing and being, you have people tend to be more grouped inside in the winter.
Correct.
So it could be that the warming weather, when it happens, will help. We have some other good signs for each of the last 3 days. the rate of increase has decreased. In other words,
That's
there have
good
been,
news.
200 or 300 most days. There was a reclassification of the what constitutes the novel coronavirus, and that jacked the increase up much beyond what it had been and what it is now. But as recently as the 13th of February, it was about 5,100. Then it went down to 2,600. Then it was back up to it was continuing to decline at about 2,100. So anyway, we're still getting a couple of thousand new cases a day, but the rate of increase has diminished, which probably indicates that the quarantine is being effective. And these are my informal figures from reading a variety of stats in recent weeks, is that roughly 6 times as many people are being cured and released as are dying. And
That's good news.
That's certainly good news. And we should note that as of this morning, there were, look at this, 1776, the great patriotic year here in the United States, the Declaration of Independence. So that's how many people have died as of Monday morning. And there are 71,000 plus confirmed cases. But the rate of increase has diminished.
So which is good, because so far right now we currently have confirmed cases 71,450, right?
Yes.
Up to today.
Yes, as of this morning. I think that's Greenwich Mean Time. As of today.
So, which is good, because I see the decrease and the change in regards of this ferocious virus that is spreading like a wildfire.
Yes.
And the preoccupation of the international health initiatives and departments, talking about what to do. Is there any news about the vaccine?
I don't think that they really know. Last week we speculated, or you mentioned that you had heard 3 months. Not long after that, about a day after you told me that, I read that they were talking about whoever they are, an 18-month period, but then I read subsequently perhaps 3 months. So I really don't think that the scientists and doctors are positive how long it's going to take. But certainly a great deal of work is being done, and the quarantine is being effective. This is the kind of disease in the old days for what today we call advanced medicine, and what we all are thankful to have is transportation and communication. Without those advantages, we could be looking at perhaps millions of deaths.
Yep.
And I think it's as horrible as it is. It looks like it's going to be contained.
Welcome to
Tom and Jesse Podcast. Everything relevant in the news.
local, national, and international.
Let's talk about this big loss that in California, or even in the world. Talking about Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, it was a shocking loss. I was en route, ironically, to Calabasas when this happened. I received a phone call from my 92-year-old mother, who's not really that much of a sports fan, but she knew that Kobe Bryant really transcended sports. And so she called my wife. I was driving. My wife took the call and gave us the bad news. And it reminded me, just like so many people, if they're sports fans in particular, the great memories of Kobe, the exciting victories. I first saw him in action when he was in high school. I didn't see the game live. It was like before the NBA draft. Kobe was born in 1978. He came into the NBA right out of high school.
Correct.
So that was in 1996. And there was a film. I mean, the Lakers had drafted him. Jerry West, the great, not only Mr. Clutch as a player, but every bit as clutch and as accomplished as a general manager, championship builder for the Lakers, had drafted this high school kid, and in the middle of the first round, and he drafted a kid who was on TV, and they had a film of him, and he was about 25 feet from the basket. He made a couple of very quick moves, took about 2 dribbles, soared, and dunked the ball. And it reminded me of Michael Jordan. And I said to myself right then, and it's easy to become too excited about brilliant young talents in any endeavor, particularly sports. But I said to myself, that guy is going to be one of the all-time greats. And I'm not always right in my predictions, but certainly I was this time with Kobe. I had the pleasure of seeing him play in person back in 2010. They played I was at the Staples Center in L.A., and they were playing the Sacramento Kings, who then as now were struggling. And a guy who had been their first-round draft choice a few years before that, named Spencer Hawes, a 7-footer who could shoot the ball,
tall guy,
on this particular day was playing like a 7-foot Larry Bird, which was what they had hoped. He was just bombing away, and he had more than 30 points this game. And the Kings were leading. They frittered away part of the lead, and they were up by 2 with just a few seconds left. One of them, Kings, was on the line. He could have iced the game by making 2 free throws, and he missed both of them. So with just a few seconds left, Kobe received an outlet pass after the second missed free throw, drove down the left sideline, crossed the midcourt, and way behind the three-point line, went up for a three-pointer. He was almost out of bounds when he shot it, and bang, just before the buzzer rang, the ball went through, and he made it.
That was, just imagine the exhilaration.
It was exciting. Even though I'm a Kings fan, I like the Lakers too, and it was a historically important shot even then.
Yeah.
Even though it was just a regular season game against a Kings team that was not real good, and that we should mention the 2010 Lakers would go on to win the NBA championship.
Yeah. You know what? I remember that I was in the semifinal in one of the I think it was the number 3 game that the Lakers were playing against Spurs, and I had the pleasure to meet Kobe.
Oh, really?
Because I had a friend of mine that he invited us, some friends. We went to see the game. We were like the 5th row where the Lakers were sitting.
You must have some wealthy friends. Sitting that close.
Yes, and he was, and he invited us, and we enjoyed so much that game, because playing, watching the game, with all stars. I saw also Magic Johnson, which is the one that I had a dear. Because he was an amazing guy, when he was playing, and after that he found about his situation, when he left the game.
HIV positive.
He was strong and a great example for many people that they are going through that same situation.
Well, he's the ultimate example, because here he is, 25 years later, and he still is a very strong man. Very active, super successful in business, works out every day, lifts weights, and is as effervescent and dynamic as always.
Correct.
And so, yes, he is an inspiration. And back in those days when Magic was diagnosed, it was considered still by many to be a death sentence.
Correct.
And we all thought that Magic was going to wither away. But even then, I guess they had a medical cocktail that was sufficient to suppress the virus, and they've improved that, of course, over the last quarter century.
Correct.
And I think Magic is doing very well.
Back then, Kobe Bryant was using number 8. Remember that he.
Yes.
Yes. What was the reason that Kobe changed? Do you know that?
I really don't know.
Because then later, because I stopped seeing the games because I got so busy in life, and I didn't have chance to follow the game. But then I saw that he was using 24.
24 is an important number for me because as a kid growing up in Sacramento, down the road from Sacramento or from San Francisco, Willie Mays, who I think was the greatest baseball player in history, and I still believe that. But whether one agrees with that or not, no one could say he's not in the top 5 ever. And he was number 24. So number 20, whenever I hear the number 24 in any context, I think of Willie Mays.
You always remember.
So I remember Kobe switching to 24.
Yeah. So it's one of the things that caught my attention in how dearly was Kobe Bryant to not only California but across the United States or the world.
Yes.
It was a big loss of a big basketball star, and especially the love that he had for his family. And I am a fan of the night shows. Those live comedy shows.
Yeah.
And it had been the last one that he went to Jimmy Kimmel. It was very interesting how he was portraying the family values, why it was important to retire, because he was only 41 years old, in the best moment of his life, having, being successful in basketball, being successful in his marriage. He loved her daughters, and he was, entering on the entrepreneurial world, all his life ahead, and
he was doing a lot of great work. They died, he and his daughter Gianna and 7 other people.
Correct.
It was a horrific accident. 9 people perished. They were en route to the Mamba Academy or facility that Kobe started, and it was going to be for women's basketball. More than 40 years ago now, I, as a correspondent for the Sacramento Bee, had the pleasure of covering a lot of girls' high school basketball, and as well as some college basketball as well. And I learned a lot about the game. And a lot of times, men who have not seen women's basketball find that they love it when they see it. I occasionally go and see the Cal State Bakersfield team play, the women's team, as well as the men. And so Kobe was very involved in women's athletics. His daughter, Gianna, the late Gianna, was considered a great prospect and a likely pro.
Yeah, well, rest in peace, this great start. Well, Tom, it's time to go, and we would like to thank the public for being connected with us. And if you have any question, any suggestions, any information that you would like to know, shoot us an email or text us on Facebook, in any of our outlets where you can find this podcast.
Well, we should mention a few of our outlets. We're known as the Tom and Jesse podcast, but you are Jesse Portillo. I am Tom Clark. My byline as a writer is George Thomas Clark. So if you go to Facebook, you can find Jesse under Big
Jesse Portillo at Facebook.
Oh, Big Jesse Portillo.
Yeah, because there I have on my personal profile that is Jesse Portillo, but you will find the podcast, the letters Big, B-I-G, Jesse Portillo.
Well, you have Big Radio Pro also, right?
Correct.
Hopefully we'll have it posted there.
Yes, also look for it on Big Radio Pro.
Entrepreneurial, and on my page, George Thomas Clark, my personal page, and George Thomas Clark page, as well as my website, georgethomasclark.com. So we want to make our podcast accessible to a lot of people because we're offering political analysis as well as cultural events and sports.
Information that it pertains to our community, and it's worth talking about it. So we hope you enjoy our podcast as we do on the making of it, and we hope to see you or talk to you next Monday.
All right. See you then.
Welcome to
Tom and Jesse Podcast. Everything relevant in the news.
local, national, and international.